I think something that's been pretty splashy, been talked about a lot on social media is Shane Beamer and the Gamecock recruiting. And sort of have to tip their cap. They've done pretty well lately. So they landed Nyckoles, if that's how you say it, Harbor, tight end wide receiver, super fast. Sounds like they'll play him at wide receiver. He's also a track star, 5-star. He said that they can expect their fans can expect championships and to call him their quote king. Bold commentary. They also landed 4-star Cam Pringle is an offensive lineman, and he's in the 2024 class, which we'll talk about in a second. He did have a Clemson offer. Those two, the recruiting in general, what are your thoughts on their momentum, the classes they're putting together, where they're headed? I mean, they're still pretty far behind Clemson, but they've at least closed some ground, right?
Yeah, I got some thoughts there.
All right.
Yeah, I think Harbor's a phenomenal athlete. First of all, I would have liked to see him end up on defense. He's maybe a little bit too soft to play defense, though. But he's definitely a raw football player, a phenomenal athlete. But still someone I view as maybe borderline a top 10 player nationally. So obviously a huge pickup for South Carolina. That said, I don't think he'll be developed quickly enough to be a problem for Clemson this season. And I'll get to that in a second, or I'll get to more on that in a second. And I would say about Pringle, he's a prospect that has very mixed opinions from evaluators. I've heard, some not so nice things about his weight and work ethic from an SEC staffer that, I'll keep to myself. But, a comment that I think is noteworthy. But I'm not really stressing about South Carolina's momentum for these in-state offensive linemen, especially not after the past cycle. Like I said, I thought we signed our best pound-for-pound class offensive in terms of the offensive line ever, and we did that without signing a single player from the state of South Carolina. So I'm not really stressed out about that. You'd like to see Clemson land Blake Franks over South Carolina in the coming weeks, but it does look like that's starting to trend lower, I would say. But I think we'll be fine. As far as South Carolina football, in my opinion on that, I think that's a much different question because I do think they've done a pretty good job recruiting in the trenches under Beamer, but nobody really wants to talk about what life after Spencer Rattler looks like. And I don't really think that there's that much in the cupboard left after he departs the season and after, a lot of their leaders leave this season. Juice Wells, they're losing some defensive linemen to the portal. Cam Smith to the NFL draft. So I don't know who's going to play quarterback for that team next season. And I don't think that the Tennessee and Clemson wins this year should distract from what was actually headed for, a very disappointing season for South Carolina. They were a bad football team before the final 3 or 4 weeks of the season. That's just that's objective fact. And they turned the corner and they beat Tennessee and they beat Clemson. They ruined our seasons. But I'm not sold on this team. I'm really not, especially with, arguably a very questionable offensive coordinator hire and likely what's to be another underwhelming defense. But all things considered, it should be a very tough road game, this season, I would say.